Hello and welcome. My name is John Michael Collins. Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode. The music you just heard is fun, upbeat, and kind of depicts me. It was provided by my friends Marino and Noah Correa, who are part of a company called CinemaSonic. Head over to their website down in the description to find out how you could get quality audio and visual works for your next project. I'm trying to go directly from my nap that I take straight into my sound booth. I try to take a 15-minute daily nap. So far I've been taking it around, 4 or 5 p.m. And I really think I need to push that earlier in the day. But what it's doing is, I think, helping me to rest. This last month has been a very, very, I don't know what the perfect way to put it is, to describe it. I'd say it's been a little hard. I have very few things to complain about. But the things that I could complain about, we all have stuff to complain about. They're like hurdles in our day, things to jump over. And it's just interesting. Like I say, everything's interesting. Last episode I talked about giving up social media for Lent and actually deleting it. So now it has been a week without social media. The first few days were really hard because my mind is deprived of something that it's been part of for so long, something that it's had, just the satisfaction of seeing everybody else's life in front of you. I feel much more free. I don't think social media is bad. I just feel like for me, it was time to let it go. I haven't really been thinking about it these last, the second half of the last week. The first half of the last week, I was just sad and somber because I no longer had it. But now, I don't really think about it. I mean, I think about it sometimes, but I also am thinking about other things, like things that are coming up in my life. And I guess it's putting this big giant spotlight onto me feeling just anxious about certain things. The reason I deleted it is because I feel like Jesus called me to delete it. But it's been a new adventure, a new journey. If you think about this, if you think about that, think about this and that, yeah. That could be a cool little jingle for something. Just, I guess, a jingle inside of my mind. A jingle inside of my mind. Hum. Speaking of a jingle inside of my mind, so if you are just joining this podcast as a personal and therapeutic tool this podcast is a personal and therapeutic tool that I call a vocal diary. It's a space for me to process thoughts, explore stories, and post them for those who might be interested. Hopefully inspiring someone. I'm not doing this for any type of social gain or to be a better human. Episodes 1 and 2 talk about who I am, so if you're interested, give them a listen if you haven't. Otherwise, hello. A quick disclosure that going on tangents may or may not be involved. This show is conversationally true to how I speak. A quick shout out. EDC Crate is a website where you can go to buy different items. Currently they have some lip balm, some soap, and some cologne there. And it's super cool because I actually bought some of their cologne back in December, treating myself for Christmas. I'm not wearing it right now because I'm not wearing my sweatshirt, and I usually just put it on my sweatshirt because if I put it on my shirt, then you know how you wash your shirts really often? I don't wash my sweatshirt as often. And you're just washing off the smell. But I do like to wear it because I like the smell of it, and it brings me a type of satisfaction. So if you're interested in anything on their website, you could save a couple bucks by using coupon code GQT15%. I find myself repeating a lot of things in my head and actually now choosing, do I want to say that or no? Normally you're just talking and you're thinking about you're not really thinking about the words that are going to come next. You're just talking. It's a process that happens so quickly inside of your brain. But now I discovered this thing while I was actually practicing a monologue. I was thinking, okay, while I'm saying this current line, what is the next line? Let me be thinking of the next line that I'm going to be saying. The more you practice, you don't even think about the line, you just think about your delivery. So that's one of the cool things about being an actor. Another cool thing is when you get to work on a lot more projects than you're actually currently working on. It's like a job, When you have a job, you're not really thinking about going back to your job and doing your job all the time. Or maybe you are. Everybody's different. But when you're an actor, the projects are so short term that when you don't have one, you just feel time to look for the next one. Yeah. I was going to say you just get down and bummed that you're not in another project, that you're not part of another project. But I like the thought more about just looking for the next one. Where's the next one? The next one. The next one. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. To when I hung out in New York. You'll have to forgive me for a moment I feel like I've said this many, many, many times already, that it's kind of this paradox. It feels like this paradox right now of me just, I've spent so many hours listening to myself through headphones while I'm editing this podcast, while I'm editing the show, that talking out loud in real life now kind of feels like I'm just listening to myself. I'm listening to my recording, but I also get to direct where it's going. I've been to New York twice. New York is a very, very cool state. New York is a very cool city. New York State is a very cool state. See what I did there? The first time I went was in 2015. The second time I went was in 2017. Both times I went, I stayed with the same person. Shout out to you. You know who you are. Thank you for being awesome. New York, by the way, that's what we were talking about, is a very, very cool city. It would be interesting to live there someday. It would be interesting to live not in Times Square, where you live in a tiny apartment area, super, super tiny, and you have to be super, super conservative with space and everything. It would be nice to have a farm kind of out in the country. That's what I want someday, is a farm kind of out in the country. I watched a clip from The Notebook last night between Ryan Gosling and Rachel McAdams. Those are the two actors. And he says this thing, where do you imagine yourself in 30 years? 30 years. Where do you see yourself 30 years? What do you want? What do you want? What do you want? What do you want? So I'm thinking about that. What do I want? Where do I want to be? But it's really important to be present and find a balance between thinking about the future and thinking about the present time. It's more important to think about the present time. Speaking of the present time, we are currently talking about New York, and when I went to New York, the first time I went, I think I only stayed there 2 or 3 days. I'd been driving around the country, and I stopped there. New York is this giant jungle. Because if you look at it from an aerial view, there's dozens of buildings. And it's insane. It's incredible. It's just so busy. So maybe I don't want to live super downtown because it's so busy. Maybe I do, because then you'd have stuff to do. But then when you want to be quiet, it would be kind of hard to get away from the loud noises, because they say that New York never sleeps. It's the city that never sleeps, because there's always something going on. What did I do the first time I went? I think the first time I went, wow, was that really during that time? No, that was the second time. Both times I went, I walked around a lot. And I mean a lot. Like many miles. What's my favorite thing about New York? Do I have a favorite thing about New York? Everywhere we go is just like a brief moment in time. And it's hard to wind back to that time. I think I journaled about it. I went to this coffee shop. Okay, this is probably the coolest thing that happened while I was there. I went to this coffee shop, and oh my goodness, I remember the guy's name. I met this guy at the coffee shop, and we talked for a little bit. And the next time I went back, which was like 2 years later, I saw him again. I think at the same coffee shop. It's just like, okay, wow, this is insane. I'm gonna text him. I don't know what he's up to, but I'm gonna text him quick. We'll see where that goes. Yeah, I really don't have any crazy story off the top of my head from New York. I did not go to the Empire State Building. I walked past it. I was going to take a ferry, but I didn't take the ferry. I saw the Statue of Liberty off in the distance. I walked past the One World Trade Center, which is where the Twin Towers were. I won't go into this, but if you want to think about something very, very interesting, when the buildings fell, there was a church building. I think it was a church building nearby, which is where, after the Declaration of Independence was signed into being, our founding fathers walked over to that building, and then I think George Washington, led a prayer or something, praying for the country to come. And when the buildings fell, all the surrounding buildings got damaged in some way by the debris. I don't know what the radius was, but that building, that church building, was completely untouched. It's like, okay, wow. And how there was a piece of metal when it fell that struck a sycamore tree nearby. I'll write this book down in this episode's description. It's called The Harbinger by Jonathan Cahn, and it talks about all these crazy things that happened during 9/11 in the early 2000s, similar, very, very similar things that happened during biblical times. It's mind-blowing. I just gave you a little taste. But New York is a really, really cool and iconic place. New York was the landing site when settlers came over. Yeah. If you get the chance to travel to New York, I would highly, highly consider it. I would imagine it is much more enjoyable during non-COVID times, because they have just gone through immense amounts of hardship in the last year. A nice lesson to tie that up with would be cherish every moment that you have when you get to do something and enjoy it. Not only cherish it, treasure it and enjoy it, because you might not ever get to go there. You could share the experience with other people that might not ever get to go there. I mean, I've kind of shared my experience with you. It's a lot of walking. There's a lot of people everywhere. I'll wrap it up with this cool story that I like to tell people. The second time I went to New York, I was staying with my friend in Brooklyn. On a Sunday, I wanted to go to church with a new friend that I had met actually in Israel. I had just gotten back from a trip in Israel. I got up, I took a train from Brooklyn to downtown Manhattan. I was trying to anyway, because that morning the train system was like having issues. The subway, that's what it's called, the subway. It was having issues. I didn't know it very well, but I ended up giving this stranger directions. They were proper directions, but it was cool. I made it to my friend's apartment. We were walking to church. We had to take a train like 2 stops from her apartment to where Hillsong Church met or currently still meets. And as we were going, we were talking, and she's like, oh yeah, this is a celebrity church, and Justin Bieber goes here. And I'm like, what? No. Justin Bieber? No. No. And she's like, yes. We get in, like, with only a couple minutes into the building, and the lights go down. There's, like, worship music playing, and we're singing. The lights come back up, and Justin Bieber's right down there in the front. Like, oh my goodness. So cool. And later that day, I saw a picture of him at that service, and I'm like, so cool. And it was cool that everybody, like, just treated him like a normal person. To When India Became My Number 1 Listener. These last 49 episodes have been very awesome, a very humbling experience for me to learn how to, like, podcast and think about things and invite other people in to listen. Like I said in the beginning, I'm not doing this for any type of social gain or to be a better human. I don't know at what point India became my number 1 listener, but where I host my podcast, Captivate.fm, you should highly consider it. If you are a current podcaster or want to start a podcast, I would definitely recommend going there because they've got a lot of good, like, distribution stuff going on. They track really good analytics of podcast episodes. I would highly consider joining or transferring to Captivate.fm. When I joined, they were the number 1 podcast host in the world. All the analytics that are downloaded are certified. It's very interesting because India currently holds 2/3 of my downloads, or close to 2/3 of my total downloads. And then, obviously, the United States is next. Someone had mentioned, oh, you're going to have to start, like, marketing to India. That would be cool, like talking about India, products in India, or, you know, just like product reviews. Maybe someday. That's a cool idea. Who knows? Thank you, India, for listening. If you are currently in India, I am reaching out and giving you a high five. Thank you. I want to go to India, preferably when COVID is like less of an issue, but hopefully someday. I really want to thank you from the deepest part of my heart for tuning in to this episode. If you liked it, please share it with your family and friends and anybody and everyone you know. Also, if you don't mind, head over to my website, which is my creative portfolio, johnmichaelcollins.com. Hi, you. Hello there. How's it going? Thanks for listening.